Before Apple famously asked the question,
"What's a computer?"
we already had the answer. The computers we spend the majority of our time with every day are the ones we carry in our pockets. It's our phones. Smartphones today are unbelievably powerful. The frustrating thing is that we rarely get to use that power to the full potential. One company above all lets you maximize, or at least try to maximize, the full potential of your phone. And that is Samsung with their Samsung DEX. So today I want to go ahead and revisit DEX here in 2020 in its current form with its current latest software update, which at the time of this video, it's going to be One UI 2.1. So the concept of running a desktop environment on our phones is not a new concept. Microsoft was really the first one to try and make this go mainstream with their Windows Continuum, or Microsoft Continuum, on their Windows Phone platform, which we all know how that went. Personally, I thought Windows Phone was excellent. I liked the UI. The problem was developers just would not get on board. So if you used Continuum, it looked exactly like Windows 10. It had a really nice, clean interface, and the apps that were optimized, even though there were very few, actually worked really well. Specifically the Microsoft Office apps. So your Word, your PowerPoint, and your Excel, they all looked and functioned just like the desktop counterpart. So before we get started, I wanted to go ahead and show you the equipment that I use for Samsung DeX. It's not a requirement, but since this is not a permanent solution for me, I use the Microsoft mobile mouse, I use the Microsoft foldable keyboard, and then I use the original DeX station, which is not required. You can use any USB Type-C connector to connect this to a monitor. The reason I use the original DeX dock is because, one, I already have it. I've had it for a couple years now, so I might as well use it. But the main feature is because it has a little built-in fan, so it keeps your phone cool while you're using Samsung DeX. Because if you're going to do an extended gaming session, having this full screen pushing a monitor, your phone's probably going to get a little warm. So that's personally why I like using it. And it's got all the connectors that you would need, like HDMI and additional USB Type A ports. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and go into a screen recording of DeX just because I think it's easier to show you. So obviously for this, I'm using a mouse and a keyboard, and I've also paired an Xbox One X controller to it, Bluetooth, that is. So the first big thing you're going to kind of notice with the updated Microsoft DeX is you can actually snap two apps side by side, which you could do before with keyboard shortcuts, but now you can actually just use your mouse and it works like it would in Windows. So you can just snap an app to the right and the left, and it works well, and it's very convenient because it automatically resizes them to that equal size. Another neat feature, which I think has improved some, is whether using Chrome or Edge. I kind of prefer using Edge on this now. When you open a tab, before it was a little bit of a pain in the butt where you had to always request it as a desktop site, which now you still have to do that initially, but once you open that tab as a desktop site, it'll stay there. So if you go to different sites, it'll still remain as a desktop site, which is nice. Also, a benefit of Samsung DeX is if you go to YouTube, whether it be in Edge or Chrome, you can actually watch videos in 4K. So obviously, depending on your monitor or the output of whatever station you're using, you may not be able to get that resolution to push to the monitor, but still you can actually select 4K on YouTube and it will play, and it'll play full screen, which is nice. So I will say, since I did my last video on DeX, it has definitely gotten more polished. It just feels more usable to me. I'm gonna put in an in card when I looked at DeX initially, which I think was like a year and a half ago. So it's been a while. So since then, I think the interface has gotten better. It's gotten more user-friendly, and you could definitely use this as your only setup, depending on what you're doing, obviously. But I will say the experience is very comparable to a Chromebook. But another cool thing, and something that a lot of people will be interested in, is gaming on this. So obviously it depends on the game, but if the game supports a controller input, you can definitely run this on DeX. You can run it full screen and you can use a controller. In my case, I'm using a Bluetooth Xbox One X controller, and it works excellent. So the games that I tried with it are Minecraft and Asphalt 8, and they both support controller input, so you can go full screen on these and they work great. Now, personally, I'm not a big gamer, so I don't play a lot of games. So if you've got any good titles to try with DEX, throw that in the description below. Like I said, I'm just not a big gamer. If I want a game, I've got an Xbox that I can use just fine instead of doing it on my phone. But for those of you who want to use DEX as a all-in-one solution, then you can definitely game on this. But as you can see, there's a ton of things you can do with DEX. You're kind of limited by your imagination. You can do things like open two files apps at the same time, and you can drag files in between the two file apps, which is actually really convenient. You can also drag and drop items from your files to the DEX desktop, and all that does is create a shortcut to it, but it works just like it would on Windows. So you can drag a picture or a video from your files to your desktop, and then you can click on that and open it, and it'll work as it should, as you would expect. You can also do things like pin stuff to your taskbar. You can pin shortcuts to the actual desktop, so whichever ones you want to have, you can pin. So the customization is really up to you. You can change the wallpapers, so it functions very similarly to a Windows PC, so no complaints. Like I said, to me, Samsung has definitely added more polish to this, and it keeps getting better over time with updates. Now, the major complaint was Samsung was directly supporting a Linux on DEX initiative, and for whatever reason they abandoned that. But personally, I've never used Linux, so for me individually it wasn't really of much value, but to a lot of people I know it was, and it was definitely a big deal when they dropped it. But overall, as I'm jabbering, I'm just showing you guys some of the different features of it, so just bear with me, sit back and enjoy. But like I said, if there's anything specifically you want to know about DEX or you want me to try, just shoot it in the comments and I'll definitely do that. So the good thing about DEX is it will run on any Samsung Galaxy phone or Galaxy tablet, obviously depending on how old it is. But I know for sure it works on the Tab S4 and it'll work on the Note 8 and above. But again, it's got to be a Galaxy. So if you have like an A series phone, they just didn't build that into them. So yeah, that was just a quick demo of Samsung DEX. Like I said, I think it's a great concept. It works well, and personally, I could use this as my one and only PC if I had to. Obviously, you've got some sacrifices with that, but overall it works really well. So again, hopefully you guys enjoyed that video. If you want to see more like this, make sure you hit that notification bell and make sure you subscribe. Thanks.